Wes tu har min freon and welcome to another video. The works of John Ronald Reuel Tolkien cannot be made into a film or TV show in today's world. And that is the simple truth. Oh yes, I am back. Your dear old European lore is back with some more truth and urging you to go back and enjoy the original source material if you want to, well, immerse yourself in Arda, the world of Professor Tolkien, and indeed the story set in the secondary world of Middle-earth. My dear friends, whether you want it or not, whether you crave an adaptation after adaptation after adaptation, if you are eagerly awaiting the Rings of Power or the War of the Rohirrim, or if you are waiting for a video game that will be set in the world of Professor Tolkien, some of my viewers have suggested that it would be fine to have an open-world fantasy video game in which you would play as one of the Tolkien's characters and go on adventures of your own. And I say, of all the works of art, of fantasy, of the 20th century and the 21st century, Professor Tolkien's works is the most difficult work to adapt, either on the big screen or the small screen. Why? If you just look at the Silmarillion, and now I have to say that I will try to make it as simplistic as possible. I will not go into detail. I'm not one of those channels that makes videos of the type 5 things you might have not known about Morgoth, or 18 things about the Rings of Power that will make you go, what? No, I don't make this kind of content. I consider it to be lazy and an entertainment for dull minds who cannot go and grab the book and read it for yourselves. It's the same thing as with any other subject matter. Say, for example, superheroes. If you go to a video and search for 10 things you might not know about Dick Grayson, the first Robin, well, why not just go and read the comic books if you're so interested in it? Oh, I know. Because watching a video like this takes 10 minutes instead of the hours that you have to put into enjoying some quality literature. So, we have established this. Why is it so difficult, and indeed, why is it impossible to make Professor Tolkien's work into a film or a TV show? Specifically, then, the Silmarillion. And maybe then, of course, the Unfinished Tales and the Children of Húrin, maybe even the appendices to the Lord of the Rings, to which Amazon has got the rights for. Let's say everything that takes place in the very distant, chronicle-like history of Tolkien's world, thousands and thousands and thousands of years before the events of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. Firstly, because it was written in a very different way than The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit. Some of you might have, my dear friends, experience with reading old books, old manuscripts or texts, such as different myths and legends, or most of you, I know that a lot of my viewers are very much religious, and you're always talking about Tolkien's Catholicism and his faith and the way it influenced his work, which was of course true. So imagine you, those very religious viewers of mine, that somebody would try to adapt the Bible today. That they would try to make the Bible into a 5 seasons of a show on Disney+. Or the Prime Video, to that matter. It doesn't matter. One of the streaming services. And that show would be made in 2022. Well, and all those old texts, whether we are talking about the Bible or the Icelandic Eddas or Tolkien's The Silmarillion, are very old, very conservative, chronicle-like books focusing on values that are not being held very close to people's hearts today. Traditional, old-school family values are being forgotten today. And as far as the entertainment industry goes, all that is the most important for the creators is making things relevant for today's world and for today's society. Whether it is bowing down to the gods of inclusion, representation, and diversity, whether it is focusing on people's sexuality or their gender, because everything is being sexualized today. All things are being focused, for some reason, on people's sexual desires. And you can see it everywhere. The first thing that a creator or an actor or a showrunner talks about when they are talking about a show or a book is something connected with sexuality. So that in the latest Thor movie, The Love and Thunder, there was for a long time before the movie was released talks about the Valkyrie and whether she is bisexual or not. Well, they were not talking about the story per se. Actually, very few people know that the story took a huge inspiration from one of the newer Thor comic book stories, the one written by the writer Jason Aaron, and that it was revolving around the God Butcher. And that particular story then they adapted into this movie. I didn't really agree with that, since there are many, many more better stories than the one written by Jason Aaron, but that's not the question here. The question here is that each and every time you try to adapt something old, you necessarily need to diverge from it so much that it does not resemble the source material in the first place. A lot of people were angry at Mel Gibson when he made the movie about Christ, because apparently it was too brutal. You know, the scenes with the torturing of Christ and then the crucifixion. And I say, well, why are you angry with him? Actually, if you believe in what is written in the Bible, I think that that particular movie and this particular scene was very faithful to what was being done at the time. Do you know that crucifixion was one of the worst ways for anybody to die or to be executed? It was actually more of a humiliation than the the actual act of killing somebody, executing somebody. Only the lowest forms of life, the lowest ranks of society, were crucified at the time. And people consider Jesus Christ to be the King of all kings, the Son of God, the Savior. And they killed him this way, like a common thief, and they tortured him first, and that's the fact. So, if you don't like this, why am I not allowed to not be satisfied with what Amazon is doing to The Lord of the Rings? And actually, it's quite the opposite. It's not the same thing. Mel Gibson was very faithful to the practices of the way back then. Amazon is not doing the same thing. So everything what's being done today is just destroying, desecrating the source material. And what I wanted to get to also is imagine the story of creation. And the creation was done through music. And then angelic characters, godlike characters, are creating the world. The skies, the earth, Middle Earth. And then there is one very, very dark being, so evil and so corrupt that nobody could possibly be able to understand or visualize that particular creature physically. What that creature would look like. The absolute evil, anger and hatred that is being reflected in that creature's face. And those horrible things that this creature did to the glorious paradise-like realm of Valinor. The unimaginable evil of Ungoliant, the spider that this creature, and we are talking about Melkor, of course, sided with. The evil and the darkness that was being expelled from Ungoliant's body. The fact that she killed the 2 trees of Valinor. She poisoned Valinor with her own awful, awful spider poison. And the fact that the perfect beings, the firstborn, who were made according to the image of Ilúvatar, the god, were at the very beginning swayed, a part of them, by Morgoth Bauglir. So much, and it was just a couple of words that did the job, and fooled a part of them, a huge part of them, the followers of Feanor. They wanted to leave this paradise realm. They wanted to leave the company of the gods that were embodiment of good. And because they wanted to leave this paradise that was being ruled over and inhabited by angels and gods, and because of this they killed and slaughtered their own kin at Alqualonde, brutally murdered their own brothers and sisters, their kinsmen, just so they can steal their ships, the most precious things they created, and go fight Morgoth. Because of what? Because of gems. Because of materialism. Because of something materialistic was more important for them than family, than their kin, than their own race. Beings that looked and behaved like themselves. There was a tremendous sense of tribalism in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. Tribalism. Each and every single race in Middle-earth, they were very, well, let's say, of a very patriotic, tribalistic, nationalistic persuasion. The elves did not like the dwarves, and the dwarves didn't believe anybody else. See? The hobbits didn't want to have anything to do with the rest of the world, because the big people were scary and evil. And the world is not presenting itself this way today, unfortunately. Today, we are led to think that we should all be one, that there are no differences between us, and that we should not even point the differences out, which is, of course, impossible, unrealistic, and very dumb and idiotic. This only leads to, well, devolution. That leads to the ultimate downfall of human race. But that is not the matter here. The matter here is that the works of the past should be enjoyed in their original form. Because the world today is very much different. Unfortunately, is much worse. It's absolutely horrible and catastrophic. And everything that the modern creators can do is to destroy, steal that was created in the past, those perfect and pure things, the traditional values, and destroy them because they hate traditional values, they despise them. Because the world has become the world of degenerates and the world of spoiled little brats who have everything. And I'm mainly talking about the West. I'm mainly talking about the Western civilized world, like the United States of America and Europe. Well, that's a matter for another video, and maybe for a completely different channel. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about all this, and that will be all. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm out of here.